My name's William. Back then, I didn't have many friends. I was a quiet kid, not very good at sports or fitting in. I had one friend though, and for the sake of privacy, I'll call him Elliot. We met in 2nd grade. He was that kid the one other kids whispered about. He wore clothes that never quite fit, always looked like he hadn't slept, and he flinched every time a teacher raised their voice. People avoided him. I didn't. We became close after I stood up for him once on the playground. Some kid tried to trip him during kickball and laughed when he hit the dirt. I shoved the kid, nothing serious. But Elliot looked at me like I'd done something heroic. After that, we stuck together. I'd like to say we were just two outcasts who found each other, but the truth is, I felt sorry for him. There was something broken in him I couldn't name back then. Still, I liked his company. He made me laugh, in his own way. At school, Elliot was different. He was quieter around adults, and when he talked to me, he sometimes said things that felt off. Not dangerous, not at first, just strange. He once told me he never slept with the lights off because when it got too dark, the house remembered things. I laughed. Kids say weird stuff, but Elliot wasn't joking. His face was flat, like he was telling me the sky was blue. Then came the morning that still makes my stomach drop. It was a Thursday. Elliot walked in. He looked kind of excited, his eyes were bright, and he waved me and another kid over. His voice was low when he said, "Come here, I want to show you something." We followed him toward the back of the classroom where the cubbies were. I wasn't expecting anything, honestly. I thought maybe he drew something cool or brought candy. But then he unzipped the front pocket of his bag and pulled something out. It was a knife, not a butter knife or some pocket-sized thing. It was one of those long kitchen ones, the kind you use to slice meat or carve a turkey. The blade caught the light from the window behind him, and for a second, I just stared at it, stupidly trying to believe it was fake. It wasn't. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. I remember my voice cracked when I said it. Elliot didn't blink. He looked me right in the eye and said, "There's this kid on the bus, keeps messing with me. He tried to jump me yesterday. I'm gonna stop it, today." I thought he was bluffing, or maybe just being dramatic. But then I saw how still his hands were. There was no shaking, no nerves, just this weird calm that made the air feel too quiet. I told him to put it away. He didn't argue, he just smiled a little and zipped the knife back into his bag. We went to homeroom like nothing happened. He even joked around a little with me, like it had been some harmless prank. But my chest felt heavy the whole time. Something was wrong, and I knew it. He'd said things like this before, about getting even, about making people go away. But I never thought he meant it. This time felt different. A few minutes before recess, he asked to go to the bathroom. I waited a beat, then followed him out. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't sit still. The hallway was empty. When I got to the bathroom, I pushed the door open, slow, and stepped in. It was cold inside, the kind of cold that seeps into your shirt. Elliot was standing near the sinks, his bag on the counter. He looked at me in the mirror. "You don't need to be here," he said. I tried to act calm. "Dude, just talk to someone. You can't actually..." "I'm gonna kill him," he said, just like that. And that's that. He said it without blinking, without raising his voice, like he was telling me what time lunch started. And then he picked up the bag and walked past me, like I wasn't even there. I stood in that bathroom for a full minute after he left. My heart felt like it was crawling up my throat. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to believe he wouldn't go through with it, but I couldn't take the chance. When I stepped into the hallway, The vice principal was coming out of the office. I didn't even think. I told him everything, fast and breathless. He didn't hesitate either. Within minutes, they pulled Elliot from the classroom. He didn't fight it. He didn't even look at me as they led him away. He got suspended for a month. The weirdest part? I missed him. Not the part of him that scared me, that blank, still version of him, but the Elliot I'd known before. We had joked about video games. We used to draw comics during indoor recess. But after the knife, I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. He didn't come back to school for a while, and when he did, he wasn't allowed near me at first, but kids forget fast. By the time 5th grade rolled around, he was sitting next to me in class again, like nothing had happened. I was never one for nostalgia, but when I got the message from Emily, my childhood friend, asking to meet up, I felt a tug in my chest. It had been years since we last spoke, probably a decade since we were kids running through the sprinkler in her backyard, laughing until our lungs hurt. Life had a way of pulling people apart, and we were no exception. College, jobs, moves, all the usual culprits. Her text was simple, just a quick note saying she was back in town and wanted to catch up at the old diner on Route 17. I didn't think much of it, just smiled at the thought of her freckled face and the way she used to braid her hair too tight. I typed back a quick, "Sure, sounds great," and set a time for Saturday evening. The diner was the same as ever, a squat brick building with neon trim that flickered like it was on its last legs. I pulled into the lot, gravel crunching under my tyres, and parked near the entrance. The air smelled of fried onions and exhaust, a familiar mix that made my stomach twist with something like comfort. Inside, the place was half empty, just a few truckers hunched over coffee and a waitress wiping down counters with a rag that looked older than she was. I slid into a booth by the window, the vinyl creaking under me, and checked my phone. Emily was late, but that wasn't new. She was always the one to show up 10 minutes behind, apologizing with that lopsided grin. I sipped my water, watching condensation bead on the glass, and let my mind wander. Emily and I had been inseparable back then. Two kids who shared secrets like they were currency. We'd spend hours in the woods behind her house, building forts out of sticks and pretending we were explorers. She was always the brave one, climbing higher, daring me to follow.
But there was something else about her. Even then, a quiet intensity that sometimes made me uneasy, like she saw things I didn't. I brushed it off as kid stuff, imagination running wild. Until now, I hadn't thought about it in years. After that, I noticed the diner felt off. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, a sound you could ignore until you couldn't. The air was too cold, like the AC was cranked despite the chill outside. I glanced at the other patrons, but none of them looked my way. Their faces were shadows, blurred at the edges, like they were part of the furniture. I shifted in my seat, the vinyl sticking to my jeans. The waitress didn't come back to check on me, just kept wiping that same spot on the counter, her movements slow and mechanical. I told myself it was nothing, just a long day making me jumpy. But the longer I sat there, the more the diner felt like a stage, like I was waiting for a play to start and didn't know my lines. Emily walked in 20 minutes late, her silhouette framed in the doorway before I saw her face. She looked different, but not in the way you'd expect after 10 years. Her hair was still long and dark, pulled into that same tight braid, and her freckles were still there, faint but unmistakable. She wore a grey coat that seemed too big for her, the sleeves swallowing her hands. When she spotted me, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. They were wide, almost too wide, like she was startled by something I couldn't see. "Hey," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, like she was afraid of being overheard. "It's good to see you." "Yeah, you too," I replied, forcing a smile. "Been a while." She nodded, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. "Life gets busy, you know." We ordered coffee, and the waitress barely looked at us, just scribbled on her pad and shuffled off. Emily didn't touch her menu, just stared out the window at the darkening parking lot. I tried to make small talk, asking about her job, her family, but her answers were short, vague. "Oh, you know, just moving around," she said, or "Things are fine, just figuring it out." Each word felt like a door closing, and I started to wonder why she'd even asked to meet. Then I noticed her shadow on the table. The diner's lights were harsh, casting sharp outlines, but hers was wrong. It was too long, stretching across the formica like it belonged to someone taller, someone standing behind her. I blinked, thinking it was a trick of the light, but when I looked again, it was still there, shifting slightly, like it was breathing. My stomach tightened, and I tried to focus on her face instead, but her eyes were fixed on the window, unblinking. "You okay?" I asked, my voice catching a little. She turned to me, her smile thin. Why wouldn't I be? I didn't know how to answer. The diner felt smaller now, the walls closer, the buzz of the lights louder. I glanced at her shadow again, and it seemed to flicker, like a candle flame caught in a draft. I told myself it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks, but my hands were clammy, and my coffee tasted like ash. After that, things got stranger. Emily started talking about the woods behind her old house, her voice low and deliberate, like she was reciting something. "You remember how we used to play there?" she said. "We'd find things, weird things, rocks that didn't look right, shadows that moved when they shouldn't." I nodded, uneasy. I remembered the woods, but not like that. To me, they were just trees and dirt, a place to escape our parents. But the way she talked, it was like she'd seen something I hadn't, something that stayed with her. "I don't know," I said, trying to laugh it off. "We were kids, we made stuff up." She didn't laugh. "Some things you don't make up," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. For a moment, I thought I saw something in them, a glint like light reflecting off water, but deeper, darker. I looked away, my heart pounding, and noticed the waitress was gone. The truckers were gone too. The diner was empty except for us, the lights flickering now, casting long shadows that danced across the floor. I didn't think much of it until Emily leaned forward, her voice barely audible. "Do you ever feel like you're being watched?" she asked. I froze. The air felt thick, like it was pressing against my skin. I wanted to laugh, to tell her she was being ridiculous, but the words stuck in my throat. Because I did feel it. That prickling on the back of my neck, like eyes boring into me from somewhere I couldn't see. I glanced at the window, expecting to see my reflection, but all I saw was darkness, a void that seemed to swallow the light. "Emily, what's going on?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer, just stared at me, her face pale, her eyes too wide again. Then she reached across the table, her hand cold as it grazed mine. "You shouldn't have come," she said, and her voice wasn't hers anymore. It was lower, rougher, like it came from somewhere else. I pulled my hand back, my chair scraping against the floor. The diner was silent now, the buzzing gone, the air heavy with something I couldn't name. Emily's shadow stretched further, curling up the wall behind her, and I swear it moved independently, like it was reaching for me. I stood, my legs shaky, and backed toward the door. "I have to go," I said, my voice trembling. She didn't move, just watched me, her smile gone. "You can't," she said, and the words felt like a weight on my chest. I turned and ran, the door jangling as I pushed through it. The parking lot was empty, my car the only one left. I fumbled with my keys, my breath fogging in the cold, and when I looked back, the diner was dark, like it had been abandoned for years. No lights, no Emily, just a hollow shell under the flickering neon sign. I drove home, my hands shaking on the wheel, the road blurring through tears I didn't realize I was shedding. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see her shadow in the back seat, but there was nothing. Just me, alone, the hum of the engine filling the silence. Now, days later, I can't shake the feeling that something followed me home. The house is too quiet, the corners too dark. I keep my lights on at night, but it doesn't help. Sometimes, when I pass a window, I see a shadow that isn't mine, too long, too thin, lingering just out of sight. I called Emily's old number, but it's disconnected. I drove by her childhood home, but it's empty, the windows boarded up, the woods behind it overgrown and silent. I don't know what she wanted or what she brought with her that night, but I feel it, always, just behind me, watching. And I wonder if I'll ever stop looking over my shoulder, waiting for her shadow to catch up.